Department within a matter of weeks, but insist it has nothing to do with the fallout from Andy McCabe's explosive accusations. So who's next in line to replace him? We are live in Washington.
I think the president presents a legitimate threat. I mean, he's trying to bypass the will of Congress. If this isn't fascism, I don't know what it is.
Plus, thousands of protesters spent President's Day railing against the Trump administration, but Democrats were looking to the liberal Ninth Circuit instead. Will their latest legal battle be enough to block the White House border policy? And it is the kiss seen round the world, what we're learning about the American hero at the center of this iconic World War II photo. Fox and Friends First starts right now. For you there. Thank you so much for starting your day with us. Another busy one on tap, and we begin with this Fox News alert for you. Rod Rosenstein expected to step down as Deputy Attorney General next month. The departure coming after former FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe reveals an inside job to remove President Trump from office using the 25th Amendment. Let's get right to Griff Jenkins. He's live for us in Washington with how the president is responding. Good morning, Griff.
Good morning, Heather. Well, the president's not the only one responding because changes are coming at the DOJ. Now, we've previously reported that Rosenstein would step down around the time new Attorney General Bill Barr took over. But now we have more of a timeline of mid-March in a confirmation that Barr will replace Rosenstein with Deputy Secretary of Transportation Jeffrey Rosen. You see him there. He's no stranger to Washington. He also previously served as general counsel and senior policy advisor for the White House Office of Management and Budget under President George W. Bush, and he was general counsel at the DOT prior to that. Now, these changes coming in the wake of that firestorm created by fired FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe, suggesting Rosenstein discuss, as you mentioned, the 25th Amendment to drive President Trump from office, and that he was willing to wear a wire. Remember that? Well, those are claims the DOJ have dismissed, but the president was tweeting. He said this: the biggest abuse of power and corruption scandal in our history, and it's much worse than we thought. Andrew McCabe, FBI, admitted to plotting a coup, government overthrow, when he was serving in the FBI before he was fired for lying and leaking. He notes Sean Hannity and Fox News and says treason. Now, Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Lindsey Graham wants to know more.
It's one of the most significant moments in American history, if it's true. So what I'll do, oversight is part of my job. We do have checks and balances, so the Congress will watch those who watch us. I'll try to find out who was in these meetings and talk to all of them and figure out who's lying, because somebody's lying.
Now, Heather, the official announcement of Jeffrey Rosen being picked may come as early as this week. We shall find out. And it'll also come with hearings, it sounds like, from Senator Graham.
Yeah, I was saying I wonder if we will see the timeline on some of that change as a result of the 60 Minutes interview. Thank you so much, Griff. Well, McCabe's motives to launch his own probe into President Trump are now under fire. Hoover Institution fellow Victor Davis Hanson says that he and other top FBI leaders were expecting to be praised for their actions if Hillary Clinton was president.
I think they feel it's Trump. Trump is a special case, and that would be the best take on it. The worst case is that they thought all along that Hillary Clinton, when they started all of this during the campaign, was going to be elected, and that behavior would not only be excused, if not rewarded. And then once that failed, they thought, well, now we'll take this campaign effort, the dossier, and then we'll board a presidency. When he says he opened up a counterintelligence investigation, he had no grounds for doing so. All he had was the rumors and the smears and the slanders and the fumes of this discredited dossier that he'd been told in 2016 by Bruce Ohr himself was unverified, and that his own spouse worked on it. So that's all just rhetoric.
And President Trump calls McCabe's investigation illegal and treasonous. Well, the other big story, California leading a multi-state lawsuit against President Trump's emergency declaration. 16 Democratic attorneys general taking the legal battle to the liberal Ninth Circuit Court, claiming the action is unconstitutional. This after the president declared a national emergency, allowing him to move about $6 billion in military funds to build that southern border wall. Now, the states say that moving money will hurt their economies and their militaries as well. Well, the failed 2016 Democratic presidential nominee is also taking aim at the declaration. Hillary Clinton questioning President Trump's effort to secure the border. The former Secretary of State tweeting, quote, "The real national emergencies, relentless gun violence, children separated from their families at the border, climate change, and Americans dying for lack of health care." Well, President's Day saw thousands of people protest nationwide against President Trump and his national emergency over the border wall. Fox and Friends First co-host Rob Schmitt talked with some of those activists at one of those protests in New York City, and he joins me now with more. So, huge crowd?
Not a huge crowd, maybe 150, 200 people, but, you know, another anti-Trump protest in Union Square in Manhattan. And it was pretty colorful. They had songs that they wrote, and, I mean, they're good at protesting. This was one of more than 275 protests across the country. As you just saw, 16 different states have filed lawsuits against the president's declaration in the Ninth Circuit, as well as a number of organizations are also filing lawsuits. I went to Union Square here in New York City to check it out.
I'm here because I'm a progressive person.
What this president is doing to this country is unforgivable.
Sick of Trump, sick of the lies, sick of the destruction of democracy that's been happening in the last 2 years.
I think the president presents a legitimate threat. I mean, he's trying to bypass the will of Congress. If this isn't fascism, I don't know what it is.
Is he anti-immigration or is he anti-illegal immigration?
Oh, he's anti-non-white immigration is what I think.
The latest, the National Emergency Declaration.
Yeah.
What do you make of it?
Ha, ha, and ha. There isn't a national emergency on our border.
There's no crisis there. I mean, there's a crisis on the planet if you want to talk about climate change.
The national emergency is Trump.
What should our southern border with Mexico look like?
I mean, I think that any country needs to have secure borders, needs to have safe borders, and needs to treat people with compassion and dignity.
So you believe in some kind of barrier, but not a wall from sea to sea all the way across?
I believe that there are smart ways to control immigration in this country.
You think that we need...
I've never denied that we don't need, like, a safe border. Right. You know, like, we need a safe border, but we have a problem, and building a massive wall is not really going to fix anything.
Do you think there should be any border at all between countries?
I don't know. I've thought a great deal about it, and I'm not sure there should be a border.
I think we should have an open border.
An open border.
Yeah. I mean, we don't need a wall. To me, that's like $5 billion that could be spent on things that could make much more substantive change.
Interesting. Open borders.
It depends on who you asked.
Yeah.
There was a slew of different opinions. There was a number of different protests within this group. There was even anger from one protest at another protest at one point. But you saw people that had the more pragmatic, we need a border, we need to protect it, we don't want the wall. And then you had a lot of people that were saying, hey, give us the open borders. There shouldn't be any borders. There should be a global community. Yeah. And
those would be the Beto supporters, Beto O'Rourke.
Yeah, the Beto supporters and the far left liberals, but there were a lot of moderates in that group as well. So it was kind of a slew of anti-Trump from all
right. I like how you described them colorful.
Yeah, it was
songs.
great. They had songs. Yeah, they know how to protest.
All right. Thank you, Rob, for going out there. Appreciate it. Well, President Trump addressing the crisis in Venezuela. That's also the big story. Warning against the dangers of socialism.
Socialists have done in Venezuela all of the same things that socialists, communists, totalitarians have done everywhere that they've had a chance to rule. The results have been catastrophic. This will never happen to us.
The president telling a crowd of Venezuelan Americans in Miami that a new day is coming. He slammed disputed President Nicolas Maduro for blocking humanitarian aid from entering the country, and he reiterated support for interim President Juan Guaido. First responders saving 16 people stranded on an amusement park ride overnight. Listen to this and look. Passengers, including children and a baby, they were left hanging in gondolas over water in San Diego. Took hours to save them one by one, lowering them into rescue boats using harnesses. The SeaWorld ride came to a sudden stop after a strong gust of wind tripped a circuit breaker. Now, the ride will be inspected, of course, before it's reopened. Scary. Happening today, the fiancé of the missing Colorado mom heads to court. Prosecutors will try to prove that there's enough evidence to put Patrick Frazee on trial. He is charged in the murder of Kelsey Barrett, who disappeared on Thanksgiving Day. Her body's never been found, and Barrett's parents claim that Frazee killed Kelsey over a custody dispute surrounding the couple's one-year-old daughter. Here's an update for you. Ruth Bader Ginsburg expected to return to the Supreme Court bench today. The 85-year-old justice will hear arguments for the first time since having surgery to remove cancer in her lungs last December. She's been working from home in the meantime. Before her recent absences, Ginsburg had never missed an oral argument since getting confirmed in 1993. Well, the time now is about 11 minutes after the top of the hour, and President Trump says the chaos in Venezuela should be a warning to everyone in America.
Socialism promises a better future, but it always returns to the darkest chapters of the past.
Debbie D'Souza was born in Venezuela and says what's happening there is a threat to our country. And she joins us next to explain. And one waitress gets a big tip for a small check. The heartwarming story behind this photo that's now.
We know the truth about socialism. Socialism promises prosperity, but it delivers poverty. Socialism promises unity, but it delivers hatred and it delivers division.
President Trump denouncing socialism in Venezuela and slamming the Maduro regime, assuring Americans that this type of dangerous socialist society will never have a place in our country. So what, if anything, should the U.S. be doing? Debbie D'Souza was born in Venezuela and joins us to share her message about the true impacts of socialism. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
So no doubt,
yes,
I want to begin with this in terms of what the president had to say last night. Speak to that and add in your personal experience, because that's really what people want to hear from you.
Well, President Trump was correct. Socialism is the opposite of freedom and democracy. And he laid it out so beautifully that the promise of socialism, free for all, everything free for everybody, is actually not true. What ends up happening is everybody becomes equally miserable. The only people that benefit are the government elite, the ruling class. And everyone else suffers from it. And the message is that socialism is not what kids think these days. They think it's cool, and they think it's free this, free that, free school, and it actually is not. Mm-hmm. It robs people. It robs the working class people from their labor, and that today. If I want to equate it to something, it would be slavery. It is present-day slavery. So I will go as far as saying that.
Debbie, I want to ask you about something the president did say in terms of what the U.S. should do. Listen to his message to the Maduro regime and the military specifically.
We want to restore Venezuelan democracy. If you choose this path, you have the opportunity to help forge a safe and prosperous future, or you can choose the second path, continuing to support Maduro. If you choose this path, you will find no safe harbor, no easy exit, and no way out. You will lose everything.
Speaking to the military there in reference to them supporting the Maduro regime, do you think that will have any impact?
I hope so. Maduro is a tyrant, and as you know, tyrants don't usually give up power willingly. The military in Venezuela is right now under his watch, and they are very, very subjected to him. So the only way that that we can help, basically, is to talk to the military in Venezuela and ask them to please do the right thing and help get this tyrant out.
I want to go back to
I do believe it.
Yeah, I want to go back to what you were just speaking on in terms of young people not really realizing what socialism is and what the implications are. We have this poll that 50%, this is a Fox News poll, 50% of self-identified liberals have this favorable view of socialism. So my question to you then is, why do they seem to want to mirror a situation that we see unfolding in Venezuela? Also, when we hear potential 2020 Democratic candidates for president speak to the socialist agenda as if that's a favorable thing.
Well, they don't understand what socialism is. They hear the rhetoric and they fall for the lies. They think socialism is actually a good thing, that it's humanitarian, that it helps the poor, but it doesn't. It actually robs people of their own labor. And so in Venezuela, that is exactly what happened. People started to flee the country because they no longer could stay in a country that actually had everything nationalized. Yeah. And so the people. There were goods and services that they could no longer get. So people are literally starving in Venezuela.
Right. We've seen the humanitarian aid blocked.
Today, yes. So the humanitarian aid is absolutely something that they need. And Maduro, being the tyrant that he is not letting them have it.
All right.
And so the only way to have that for the people is to remove that tyrant.
Okay, Debbie D'Souza.
Venezuela does not need socialism.
Right, and we do not either. Debbie D'Souza, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We really appreciate it, your time.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Well, the time now is about 20 minutes after the top of the hour. Kamala Harris says that she's not like Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
In the Democratic primary, do you have to move more toward the Democratic Socialist part of the party?
I am not a Democratic Socialist.
Well, speaking of socialism, why the 2020 contender is trying to split from the socialist wing of her party. And social media quickly spread the Jussie Smollett attack story around the world, but now it's falling apart. Back to Fox and Friends First, social media accused of censorship again. This time, conservatives say that they're trying to hide posts about the now disputed hate attack on actor Jussie Smollett. Carly Shimkus with Fox News Headlines 24/7, Sirius XM 115 is here with more on the viral controversy.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So
Carrie, apparently
I will answer to anything from you, Heather. So Donald Trump Jr. says that Facebook-owned Instagram removed a post of his that mocked the Smollett story. So he later went to Instagram and complained, saying, "I get you want to censor any conservative voice, but there is literally nothing in here that wasn't covered in every news source. It was fine to discuss at length when it seemed to work against MAGA folks, but now it's apparently a hate crime fraud. It's too sensitive." Well, a spokesperson for Instagram later told the Daily Caller that his post was removed in error. Now, moving on to Facebook, two conservative authors say that their posts about the Smollett story were also banned from the site. One of them was from the Daily Caller's Jen Kearns. She was hit with a Facebook message saying that her post goes against community standards. And now folks on social media are sounding off. One person taking to Facebook saying unreal they would take it down, but hate speech towards conservatives is totally okay and can stay up. Wow. Another Facebook user says, if this sort of censorship continues, I am done with every media outlet that doesn't present both sides of the debate. This has happened so many times, and frequently Facebook says that the posts were removed as a mistake.
As a mistake.
But I mean, how many mistakes can you make before you see a pattern?
You got to figure out why those mistakes are happening and maybe stop it from happening in the future. So Ilhan Omar Omar and this message that went out from Louis Farrakhan.
That's right. Okay, so as we know, Ilhan Omar had to apologize for some anti-Semitic tweets that she's made. And now, wouldn't you know it, she is seeing support from well-known anti-Semite Louis Farrakhan. Take a listen.
Sweetheart, don't do that. Pardon me for calling you sweetheart, but you do have a sweetheart, because you sure using it to shake the government up. But you have nothing to apologize for.
A lot of folks on social media talking about this as well. One Twitter user says, just saw Louis Farrakhan telling Ilhan Omar not to apologize for her anti-Semitic comments. Absolutely disgusting and raw-hated. Tom tweets, will Ilhan Omar condemn the speech, meaning condemn Louis Farrakhan's comment, not the person most politicians want support from.
She may not have anything to say about that today.
That one,
but something everyone is talking about. This iconic picture everyone will recognize from World War II.
We have all seen this beautiful picture before, and the man pictured kissing that nurse in Times Square to celebrate the end of World War II has died. He reflected on that photo in his life, saying he was so happy that World War II had ended that he just grabbed her and kissed her, even though the two had never met before. His name is George Mendonza. He died 2 days shy of his 96th birthday, so he lived a long life. Shaw on Facebook says, one of the times the entire nation was relieved and joyous without exception. And Lorraine says, rest in peace, brave soul. Thank you for your service. His daughter says he was very proud of that photo and his service, so we do thank him.
Over the years, a lot of artists have replicated that in paintings and murals and things like that.
Just the emotion that you can see from that picture is fantastic.
Wonderful. We'll live on forever.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Carly.
Thanks, Heather. Appreciate it.
Well, the time now is about 28 minutes after the top of the hour, and 16 states are suing to stop President Trump's emergency declaration for the wall. Not on the list, Pennsylvania. Congressman Mike Kelly says that's because his state wants to protect the American people. And he joins us up next. Expected to step down as Deputy Attorney General next month. The departure coming after a bombshell admission from former FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe about an inside job to remove President Trump from office. Deputy Secretary of Transportation Jeffrey Rosen expected to replace him. No school today for more than 250,000 children in West Virginia as teachers hit the picket lines just hours from now. They're upset about a new education bill that would use public money to fund charter schools and private school vouchers. The same teachers went on a strike for 13 days last year, which triggered a series of teacher strikes across the country. And California leads a multi-state lawsuit against President Trump's emergency declaration. 16 Democratic attorneys generals taking the legal battle to the liberal Ninth Circuit Court. They say the president moving money to build a border wall will hurt their economies. Well, Pennsylvania was not one of those 16 states filing a lawsuit against the White House's national emergency declaration. And is that proof that middle America stands with President Trump? Pennsylvania Congressman Mike Kelly joins us now to weigh in. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Heather. Thanks for having me on.
So as we begin our discussion, let's pull up a map of the 16 states that are suing. As we mentioned, Pennsylvania, not one of them. Why not?
So I think Pennsylvania has a little different view of what's going on. I got to tell you, our Coast Guard up in Erie, Pennsylvania, worked without pay for over a month during that shutdown. And these are great people, but keep in mind why it is that they go to work. They go to work to protect the American people. I think right now, at this point, Pennsylvania is looking at what's best for Pennsylvania. And I think we tend sometimes to make every issue a political issue and not a policy issue. When you go away from good policy and go to politics, it's not good for America.
So what happens next in this process, and what do you hope that Congress can do to come together and fix the situation?
Well, you know, Congress already developed these powers for the executive that they can, when put into an emergency situation, put these things into effect. So, listen, I know that with Congress, I've been there for 8 years now, the immigration problem has been a problem since day one. But getting people to sit down and come up with policy that's good for all America and not a political battle, again, policy over politics. If you can do that, stay on course, look what's best for the people you represent. I represent 705,687 people in western Pennsylvania and northwestern Pennsylvania. It's not what's best for me, it's what's best for them. And if we can't look at our jobs as protecting the American people, that's job one. If we can't look at the emergency situation we have at our borders right now, then I'm telling people you need to stop running for office to get elected looking for power and not looking for good policy.
Yeah, Congressman Kelly, you mentioned you've been there for 8 years. Do you find that the use of politics over policy has become more prevalent during the Trump administration?
Oh, sure. I mean, look, we know that everything that's taking place right now, for the most part, is about 2020. It's about the next election. It's about saying, you know what? Here's a duly elected president that, if 2 years into this administration, still by this certain group of people, he will never be accepted as our president. You look at what's happened in the past, and you say, you know, this is a man who came out of the private sector. That's where he doesn't fit in with politics as usual. He's looking at policy all the time. I will tell you what, I'll give this president and this first family the courage for standing up to a group of people that will never accept them and constantly degrade them and criticize them. It is absolutely deplorable what's taking on. If there's deplorables in the country, I will say there are, and those are the people that refuse to follow our Constitution, and the fact that we have a duly elected president and an administration that in 2 years has changed this entire economy around, and all America is better for it.
Speaking of a constitutional crisis, since you bring that up, what is more harmful to our country, the border security or the recent accusations of Democrats weaponizing the DOJ? Of course, I'm speaking of Andrew McCabe, Rod Rosenstein, and allegedly this, what some are calling this coup attempt, this secret meeting to try to oust the president.
Yeah, well, when you hear what these people talk about, I'm talking about these elite members of the FBI. Now, the FBI in general, we have wonderful people doing great jobs to protect the American people. I hear people saying this is chilling. I'll tell you what, it's not chilling. There should be an outrage in the American people that this small group of the elitists have decided that this president shouldn't be there. The American people made a mistake. They can't even come out with an insurance policy. If he were so lucky to get elected, they actually didn't think he'd get elected, so they never thought any of this stuff would come out. The American people should be outraged that this small group of people have decided to take it upon themselves to take an American president, duly elected American president, out of office using the excuse of the 25th Amendment, and then not even telling people what the 25th Amendment was about. It's about a president that's incapacitated, not a president you don't agree with. It is absolutely an outrage what's taken place, and these people need to be removed. And if you look at who the famous people are, I don't care who you talk about, but these leaders, these great American patriots, they're doing things that sounds more like a third world country than the United States of America.
Congressman Kelly, thank you so much for joining us this morning at this early hour. You are on point and fired up. We appreciate it.
We should all be fired up. Our country is in great danger.
Thank you so much. Well, some other stories that we continue to follow for you at this hour. This one that's got a lot of folks fired up. The brothers questioned in the alleged attack on Empire actor Jussie Smollett are speaking out. In a joint statement, they say, quote, "We are not racist, we are not homophobic, and we are not anti-Trump. We were born and raised in Chicago and are American citizens." Now, the brothers, once considered persons of interest, were questioned about, or they were questioned but released without charges. Smollett claims that he was attacked by men shouting MAGA country and racist and homophobic slurs. His lawyers deny reports that it was a hoax. Police want to question the actor again. Well, many now say that Smollett's accusations put President Trump's supporters in danger. If police find his claims to be false, conservative radio host Larry Elder says the actor should be the one charged with a hate crime.
Question is, why do so many people believe it? And the answer is they despise Donald Trump. Donald Trump is a racist. Donald Trump's supporters are racist. And Donald Trump's supporters are not only racist, they're also homophobic. And they're also people that engage in violence. So they wanted to believe it and ran with it, and now they're embarrassed. Isn't it good news this is not true? Isn't it good news we don't live in a country where if you walk to the street at 2 o'clock in the morning to get a sandwich, you have to be fearful that because you don't like Trump, you're going to be attacked? Instead of people being relieved, they're angry at people that are laughing at Jussie Smollett. Anybody who wore a MAGA cap after this incident had to look over his shoulder or her shoulder for fear that maybe somebody might do an act of retribution because of what allegedly happened to Jussie Smollett.
Well, Smollett says that he was attacked on a downtown Chicago street on January 29th while walking to a Subway restaurant at 2 in the morning. Much more to come on that. Well, the time now is about 20 minutes until the top of the hour, and your safety at risk. The airline accused of mismanaging the weight of checked bags, sometimes as much as 1,000 pounds, putting planes full of people in danger.
This lie that's being put out that somehow being green and responsible with the environment means you have to hurt the economy, a lie.
And Cory Booker slamming critics of the Green New Deal. Is he right? Tracy Crosco from our sister network, Fox Business, here with the new report. Good morning, Tracy.
Good morning, Heather. Yes, the FAA is currently investigating Southwest Airlines. According to the Wall Street Journal, some Southwest Airlines made some mistakes that caused pilots to compute the wrong weights into planes before they took off. In some cases, the discrepancies were as many as 1,000 pounds difference. So, of course, knowing that there are some discrepancies there, this could cause some issues with the aircraft before taking off. Adjustments would need to be made as far as takeoff speed, cruising speeds, maneuverability, landing gear, all of that. Southwest Airlines says they are cooperating with the FAA. The FAA says that no accidents have been linked to any of these weight discrepancies.
But there have been accidents in the past that have been linked to weight discrepancies. So, I mean, that can be very serious.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Senator Cory Booker downplaying reports over the cost of going green. He said, amongst some other things, and I'll paraphrase, this lie that's being put out that somehow being green and responsible for the environment means you have to hurt the economy. A lie. So he's saying it's not true.
Yes, Cory Booker making these comments yesterday while in New Hampshire, while he was, presidential campaign. Obviously, Booker said that it's possible to revive your economy and create a bold green future, citing his experience as the mayor of Newark, New Jersey. Booker also said we environmentally retrofitted our buildings, saved taxpayers money, created jobs for our community, and lowered our carbon footprint. So, of course, knowing this